The book of Judges tells a tumultuous story. The Israelites, God's chosen people, find themselves in a constant struggle for faithfulness. They cry out for help, and God, in His mercy, raises up judges, charismatic leaders, to deliver them from their enemies. One such enemy was Eglon, the king of Moab, a powerful and ruthless ruler who subjugated the Israelites for 18 long years. His reign was one of cruelty and hardship, a stark reminder of the Israelites' unfaithfulness. Would God hear their cries once more? It is in this context of despair that we meet Ehud, a man from the tribe of Benjamin. The scriptures describe him as a left-handed man, a detail that seems insignificant at first but will play a crucial role in the unfolding drama. Ehud was chosen by God to be a judge, a deliverer for his people. He was a man of cunning and courage, chosen not for his physical prowess, but for his willingness to be used by God in an extraordinary way. Ehud's story is a powerful reminder that God often uses the ordinary to achieve the extraordinary. In the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, Ehud's faith in God would become a beacon of hope for the oppressed Israelites. For 18 long years, the Israelites bore the heavy yoke of Moabite oppression. Year after year, they were forced to send a tribute to King Eglon, a painful reminder of their subjugation. Eglon was a very obese man, a detail that speaks not only to his physical appearance but also to his greed and excess. Yet even in their darkest hour, a glimmer of hope began to flicker. The time for their deliverance was drawing near. Ehud knew that this tribute presented a dangerous opportunity, a chance to get close to the Moabite king. He sought guidance from the one true God, the God who had delivered his people time and time again. Knowing that he couldn't overpower Eglon in a fair fight, Ehud devised a daring plan. He had a double-edged sword made, a cubit long, which he strapped to his right thigh, concealed beneath his clothing. With his plan in place and his resolve strengthened by prayer, Ehud gathered the annual tribute and prepared to face the man who had held his people captive for so long. He was determined to be God's instrument of deliverance, no matter the cost. The day of the tribute arrived, a day heavy with dread and anticipation. Ehud, at the head of the Israelite delegation, approached Eglon's palace, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. Eglon, accustomed to the Israelites' subservience, received them in his upper chamber. Ehud claimed to have a secret message for the king, a matter of great importance that could not be overheard by others. Eglon dismissed his attendants, leaving himself alone with the seemingly harmless Israelite. The air in the chamber was thick with tension. Eglon, his curiosity piqued, leaned forward on his throne, his eyes fixed on Ehud. With a silent prayer on his lips, Ehud made his move. In one swift, fluid motion, he reached across his body with his left hand, drawing the double-edged sword from its hidden sheath on his right thigh. The blade plunged deep into Eglon's obese belly, sinking into his flesh with sickening ease. Eglon had been betrayed, mortally wounded by the man he had dismissed as a mere messenger. Ehud, adrenaline coursing through his veins, wasted no time in finishing the job. With a strength born of desperation and divine purpose, he twisted the blade inside Eglon's belly, ensuring a fatal wound. The once mighty king of Moab lay dying on his throne, his body betraying him in the most undignified way imaginable. Ehud, his heart pounding in his chest, stood over his slain enemy, his sword dripping with blood. The deed was done. Eglon, the oppressor of Israel, was dead. But for Ehud, there was no time for remorse. He had to escape before Eglon's guards discovered what had transpired. With the coolness of a seasoned warrior, Ehud swiftly moved to secure the chamber. He closed and bolted the doors, buying himself precious time. He slipped out of the chamber and into the labyrinthine corridors of the palace, his heart pounding in his chest. He moved with a sense of urgency, his hand never straying far from the blood-stained sword concealed beneath his cloak. Finally, he reached a side gate, a less guarded exit that he had noted during his earlier reconnaissance. He had escaped alive and undetected, carrying with him a secret that would soon send shockwaves through the land. Once outside the city walls, Ehud didn't slow down. He ran towards the hills of Ephraim, where the Israelites were gathered. Ehud, gathering the crowd, raised his blood-stained sword high above his head. "The Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand," he proclaimed. The sight of the blood ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of the Israelites. The time for liberation was at hand. Ehud, sensing the shift in the Israelite spirit, wasted no time in capitalizing on their newfound courage. With Ehud at their head, the Israelites surged towards the Jordan River, the natural boundary between Israel and Moab. The Moabite outposts at the Jordan River crossings were ill-prepared for the sudden and ferocious onslaught. Ehud led from the front, his sword flashing in the sunlight as he cut down any Moabite who dared to stand in his way. The tide had turned, and the momentum was now firmly on the side of the oppressed. The Israelites, seizing control of the Jordan River crossings, effectively trapped the main Moabite force on the western side of the river. Cut off from reinforcements and supplies, the Moabites found themselves in a desperate and increasingly hopeless situation. The once mighty Moabite army crumbled from within. The Israelites, sensing their enemy's weakness, pressed their advantage, cutting down the fleeing Moabites without mercy. The land was finally free from the tyranny of Moab, thanks to the daring of one man and the unwavering faith of a people desperate for deliverance. Section 3. A respite from oppression. Ehud secures peace for Israel. With the Moabite threat effectively neutralized, Ehud turned his attention to securing the hard-won peace. He knew that complacency could easily lead to a resurgence of Moabite aggression. He ordered the fortification of the Jordan River crossings, ensuring that any future incursions would be met with swift and decisive resistance. Under Ehud's leadership, a period of relative peace and prosperity descended upon the land. The Israelites, freed from the shackles of oppression, were able to rebuild their lives and communities. The fields, once neglected due to the heavy burden of tribute, were once again cultivated, yielding bountiful harvests. The memory of their deliverance from Eglon and the Moabites served as a powerful reminder of God's faithfulness and their own vulnerability when they strayed from his commands. The story of Ehud, the left-handed judge who dared to challenge a tyrant, was passed down through generations, inspiring hope and courage in the face of adversity. Ehud's story is a testament to the power of faith, courage, and cunning in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a reminder that God can use anyone, even those considered weak or insignificant, to achieve his purposes. And it is a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, God can bring about deliverance and hope through the most unexpected means. Unpacking the gruesome details. The story of Ehud and Eglon is raw, visceral, and downright gruesome. It's not just about violence, it's about the consequences of sin and God's deliverance. Eglon's obesity symbolizes his greed and disregard for the Israelites. His end serves as a reminder of his fall. Ehud's left-handedness, seen as weakness, becomes his strength. God uses the unexpected to accomplish his purposes. The violence reflects the brutality of the times and the need to overthrow tyranny. God's justice, though slow, is always sure. Eglon's death ended his reign of terror and paved the way for Israel's liberation. God's unlikely hero, Ehud's faith and courage. Ehud wasn't a warrior king, a charismatic prophet, or a mighty man of valor. He was an ordinary man, chosen by God for an extraordinary task. His story is a testament to the power of faith, courage, and cunning in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Ehud's faith is evident throughout the story. He didn't rely on his own strength or wisdom, but sought guidance from God every step of the way. He trusted that God would make a way even when the path seemed impossible. His courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. He knew the risks involved, the potential consequences of failure, yet he pressed on, driven by his faith and his love for his people. And then there's his cunning, his ability to think strategically, to exploit Eglon's arrogance and complacency. He used his left-handedness to his advantage, turning a perceived weakness into a deadly weapon. He planned meticulously, rehearsed his moves, and seized the opportunity when it arose. Ehud is a reminder that God doesn't always choose the most obvious or qualified candidates. He looks for hearts that are willing, minds that are sharp, and spirits that are unyielding. He equips the called, empowers the weak, and uses the ordinary to accomplish the extraordinary. Lessons for today. Applying the message to our lives. Though set in ancient times, the story of Ehud and Eglon holds profound lessons for us today. It's a story about the consequences of compromise, the importance of faith and courage, and the reality of God's deliverance. We live in a world that often celebrates compromise, where standing up for what's right can be costly. Like Ehud, We may face giants in our own lives, challenges, fears, or temptations that seem insurmountable. His story encourages us to turn to God in prayer to seek His guidance and strength. Finally, the story of Ehud is a story of deliverance. Our role is to be ready and willing to be used by Him, to be instruments of His peace, His justice, and His love in a world that desperately needs it. A story of deliverance reflecting on Ehud's legacy. The gruesome tale of Ehud and Eglon is not just a historical curiosity, it's a timeless story about faith, courage, and the enduring power of God's deliverance. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, when hope seems lost and oppression seems insurmountable, God is at work. Ehud's willingness to answer God's call, even when it led him down a dangerous and morally complex path, is a testament to his unwavering faith. He understood that true leadership often requires difficult choices, and he was willing to bear the burden of those choices for the sake of his people. His story challenges us to examine our own lives, our own willingness to step out in faith, to confront the giants in our own time. It reminds us that God doesn't always choose the most obvious or qualified candidates, but rather those whose hearts are fully surrendered to His will. The story of Ehud and Eglon is a story for the ages, a story that continues to resonate with believers today. It's a story of hope, a story that reminds us that no matter how dire the circumstances, God is always faithful, and He will ultimately deliver those who trust in Him. A call to action, sharing the message of hope. If this story has resonated with you, if it has sparked something within your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with others, spread the message of hope and deliverance found within the pages of Scripture. Let the story of Ehud inspire you to be a person of faith, a person of courage, a person who stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Let it remind you that God is always at work in the world, and He invites us to join Him in His mission of redemption and restoration. And if you're looking for a community of like-minded believers, a place to grow in your faith and be encouraged by the Word of God, we invite you to join our growing family here on this channel. Hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you on your journey.